sure that you can drive safely when you are under the influence of alcohol. It just started us talking with Luke this morning and then continuing into 4BC Breakfast about the penalties for drink drivers and particularly repeat offenders. One man who is at the coalface of this here in this city is Andrew Wiseman, Principal Solicitor from Wiseman Lawyers, who's joining me this morning. Andrew, good morning.
Morning, Mark.
Is it fair to say that there are sort of two distinct groups when it comes to those who have offended in this area? Those, I suppose, like myself, if I was stupid enough to get caught drink driving, that I'd be mortified, I'd be embarrassed, I'd be horrified, and it would never happen again. And those that don't see it as a serious issue?
Look, there's probably three groups, the first being the one you just mentioned. And if I could just start by saying, if you could pull the veil of society back and see exactly who it is that the likes of myself act for every day. It's not your usual suspect. It's not the stereotype. It's literally people from all walks of life, doctors, pharmacists, professionals, etc. But as I said, I'm talking about people who have made a one-off mistake that they'll never make again. The second group would be people who, for whatever reason, have, made that mistake a second time. And then the third group would be the likes of Kevin, who just don't get it and don't care. How do we stop people like Kevin getting behind the wheel of a car then? Well, I'll put it this way. If I was a magistrate, he would have been in prison for 1 hour. There's a number of ways that need to be taken to deal with the likes of Kevin, partly the legislature. My opinion is laws need to be stiffened up, so even if you get a magistrate who wants to give someone a 10th or a 12th chance, the magistrate's compelled to give some kind of imprisonment term. And then the magistrates themselves perhaps need to take a tougher stance. I should add, when 90% of the time when people who habitual offenders come before the court, there's psychological issues put to the court. And when I say psychological issues, I'm saying that the statements made to the court say, I've got psych issues or whatever, or the solicitor will talk about discussions had with the client about psych issues, yet probably less than 10% of the time actual psychological reports attended. So I suppose the psychological issue, and I'm not trying to play psych issues down, but that submission is made quite often, yet without any kind of substance tended to back it up. So I suppose going back a step, perhaps the legislation can be tightened to implement terms of imprisonment. I'm not saying like put people away for 3 years, but 28 days in jail would be a good opportunity for people who just don't get it and don't care about other road users to think about what they've done and what they continue to do. And also, if any kind of submissions in mitigation are made, that an expectation that it'd be just more than just lip service, and then psych reports or anything like that. And I'm putting the cart before the horse, but I'm expecting that if someone like Kevin was to be put before the court or has in the past, that those types of arguments are made. And as I said, I'm not playing the legitimacy of those arguments down, but what I'm saying is there's a tendency for those kind of submissions to be taken on its face without any kind of evidence to back it up. I'm not sure if that properly answers the question, but people like Kevin, and there's plenty of them about, I'm not saying it's the majority, but there's a percentage of people on the road who just do not care. And the audio that you played earlier about the guy who's just knowing that, or assuming he can get a work licence, so he just doesn't care. As I said, people who have that mindset need to be given more than just a slap on the wrist. We were discussing along these similar lines last week or the week before on 4BC Mornings here, and one of the panellists that we were talking about punishment and making punishment harder or firmer, his thoughts were that it's not so much the punishment, it's the fear of getting caught, that people like you and I have a fear of getting caught, where a lot of other people know that they're not going to get caught, and if they do get caught, they do get a slap on the wrist in that extent. Do you find that in your business that people, the fear of getting caught is also reflective of their reoffending as well? Well, I suppose 20% of the people I act for are people similar to Kevin. The vast majority, as I said, are people who didn't willfully get themselves in this situation, but for whatever reason got it wrong, foolishly or otherwise. and the shame that they feel from that. So it's not so much the fear of getting caught again, it's more the shame of being caught in the first place. But again, I suppose in line with what you've just said, the consequences do compound if you got previous. So I guess if you get caught once, you get a penalty, and then if you get caught again, that previous penalty will impact upon further penalties. So yeah, partly the shame of being caught and the fear of that shame being repeated, but also secondly the fear of A, going through the penalty again, and B, the penalty being aggravated by that previous charge.
There'd be people listening now, Andrew, and I've got members of my family in the legal profession at quite a high level, and I often have this discussion with my uncle. That you have to defend people who have done wrong. You know they've done wrong, and you've given some very interesting insights into your mindset. What's it like for a solicitor appearing for someone that you just say, "I can't believe your behaviour"? Is that something you've got used to, and something you have to get used to as a solicitor?
Look, as I said, as far as outrageous behaviour goes, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to play down the seriousness of drink driving. It's obviously a horrid thing to do, but more often than not, it's, went out to tea, had a few beers, for whatever reason, I lost track and then I made a stupid mistake and got caught. It's like the circumstances where you've got people evading police or colliding with other motorists and all that kind of stuff. While those are the incidents that get the most media attention, I won't say few and far between, but they're not as common as the run-of-the-mill, work function, met to have a couple of drinks, got a pat on the back by the boss and felt good, so I had another drink, and then next thing I blew .14. What do I do, Andrew? Whereas people who just don't get it, well, to be frank, people who just don't get it don't engage firms like ours. They are generally self-represented and take their chances with a magistrate, and I'm not trying to be elitist or anything like that. But
No, I understand, and that's it's a point you sort of alluded to before when you're talking about the most to lose. People, and it's an elitist statement, the people with the most to lose are the ones that are more mortified. Those that have nothing to lose don't care.
Well, the people who value their licence the most will take the most steps to minimise the damage and
hopefully not offend again in that respect. Are you, just finally, and I really appreciate your time, and it's been very, very, very interesting. I'm of a belief that the right to having a licence is not a right; it's a privilege.
Exactly.
And do you agree?
Oh, look, to be honest, if I could count the amount of times I've said that to magistrates on clients' behalf, yes, so much so that I say it all the time. And I suppose a lot of the educational reforms that we get our clients to do and the other steps that we get them to take before finalising matters are things that should be part of getting a licence as opposed to losing one. It's a bit ironic that people are expected to do programs to learn about the consequences of this type of behaviour as they lose a licence, whereas to get a licence, you just fill a form out, do a quick practical test, and here you go. So I suppose maybe a bit more education at the front end, where young people get a licence about the fact that you're driving a 1-ton weapon, and if you have even a little bit of alcohol, that weapon can be fatal to other road users. But a bit more at the front end, combined with some probably stiffer consequences for people who just couldn't care less, and we might see safer roads.
Andrew, very enlightening, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mark.
Andrew Wiseman, Principal Solicitor from Wiseman Lawyers. What are your thoughts? Make some very interesting points there, Andrew. And there are those groups, aren't there? Those that are mortified and those that don't give a damn. And it's the ones that don't give a damn we've got to get off the roads and keep them off the roads. 7:19. Only one state.